Question: you recently spoke in Trinidad about an individual by the name of Musa Millington, and you warned against him, and he responded to your statement by saying that you have lied against him and that you have brought no evidence for what you have said. So what is your response to this? Ikhwan, hakikatan, the reality, Ikhwan, and the waqi' is that our statement concerning Musa Millington and his claim that we lied against him and that we have brought no evidence for the statement. What is it? What is this evidence that Musa Millington seeks? What is it that he seeks actually? Yani, when we hear him make the statement, if you listen to the audio, he mentions there is not one ayah, not one hadith. So what is it? You want an ayah that mentions Musa Millington by name? An ayah from the book of Allah Azza wa Jal? Hadith Nabawi that mentions Musa Millington by name? And it is no doubt, Ikhwan, it's just an increase in the jahl and in the foolishness that we spoke of at that or back then. As far as his claim that we lied against him, then Ikhwan, wallahi, we haven't lied against Musa. We haven't, in actuality, we haven't informed you of a tenth of what we have concerning Musa Millington. Yani, we made mention of a very brief statement concerning him, and we didn't lie against him in any way, shape or form. And his claim that we've lied against him is, of course, the claim of every single individual who is upon falsehood and upon dalala when they are stood against and when they are spoken against or warned against. We've been lied upon. We've been lied upon. They're lying. Ahl Sunnah, they're lying. And these are more lies. Subhanaka hadha buhtanun azim. And this is again, ikhwan, shinshinatun na'rifuha min akhzam, kama yuqal. This is shinshinatun na'rifuha min akhzam. Akhzam, ikhwan, is in this parable. Akhzam was an individual who used to treat his father in an evil manner. He used to beat his father, used to hit him, used to use foul language with him, foul speech. And when Akhzam passed away, his children, which is his father's grandchildren, they began to do the same. And so on an occasion when they were beating him and he was on the floor, he made his utterance, هَذِهِ شِنْشِنَةٌ نَعْرِفُهَا مِنْ أَخْزَمٍ. This is a trait that we have known and learnt from Akhzam. And this trait of yours, this trait of theirs, was a trait that was learnt from Akhzam. Yani that it was something inherited. And so these statements, we've lied against them and there's no evidence. Shinshinatun na'rifuha min Akhzam. And it has in it an indication, ikhwan, of the fact that the individual is jahil concerning the methodology and manhaj of Ahl Sunnah as it relates to Rad' al Mukhalif. Jahil, ikhwan, jahil. And it brings to mind some lines of poetry, because we said back then, and we said when we made that statement, that he is a foolish man, and we stick to that statement. And it brings to mind some lines of poetry, ikhwan, that relate to the foolish one. It brings to mind the likes of the statement, إِذَا نَتَقَ السَّفِيهِ فَلَا تُجِبْهُ إِذَا نَتَقَ السَّفِيهِ فَلَا تَجِبْهُ فَخَيْرٌ مِنْ إِجَابَتِهِ السُّكُوتُ. That if the foolish one responds, then do not respond, or speaks, then don't respond to him. For indeed what is better than responding to him is to remain silent. فَإِنْ أَجَبْتَ فَرَّجْتَ عَنْهُ. Because when you respond, you have given him some comfort. You've responded to him, you've recognized him. فَإِنْ أَجَبْتَهُ فَرَّجْتَ عَنْهُ وَإِنْ تَرَكْتَهُ كَمَدًا يَمُوتُ. Well, if you leave him, then he dies miserably. Or like the statement of the poet, يُخَاطِبُنِ السَّفِيهُ بِكُلِّ قُبْحٍ فَأَكْرَهُ أَنْ أَكُونَ لَهُ مُجِيبًا يَزِيدُ سَفَاهَةً فَأَزِيدُ حِلْمًا كَعُودٍ زَادَهُ الْإِحْرَاقُ طِيبًا. The statement of that poet, that indeed the Safih, the fool, he addresses me in every ugly manner. And I dislike that I should respond to him. He increases in foolishness and I increase in hilm and in clemency. Just as wood when it is burnt, or just like that wood that is burnt and it increases in beautiful smell. Yani oud. Or like the statement of the poet, سكت عن السفيه فظن عني عيدت عن الجواب وما عييت. That indeed I've remained silent about the safi, about the fool. So he presumed that I was unable to respond, but I am able. And it was not, one's silence is not an indication of the fact that one is unable to respond. But the silence, ikhwan, is the mu'amala and the treatment of the one who is ignorant, but is muta'alim. The one who is ignorant and muta'alim, feigning and claiming ilm, ikhwan, and claiming knowledge. From his jahl is he clearly makes no distinction between the warning of Ahlul Sunnah, the general warning of Ahlul Sunnah against an individual, and between the rad that is done by Ahlul Sunnah with tafsil and with detail. And Ahlul Sunnah carry out both, and both of those things are considered accepted from Ahlul Sunnah. Sometimes they warn without detail, and sometimes they make a detailed refutation. And he makes no difference between the jarh al-mujmal and the jarh al-mufassar. Both of them are considered jarh. The detailed jarh, the detailed disparaging statement, and the general disparaging statement. Both of them come from our ai both of them come from our scholars, and both of them are accepted. And so you'll find that sometimes the scholars, they mention مثلا لا تأخذوا عنه, don't take from him. Like the statement مثلا of Imam Ahmad concerning Hussein al-Karabisi, he mentioned concerning Karabisi, أخزى الله الكرابيسي لا تجالسه ولا تجالس من جالسه بس. May Allah humiliate Karabisi, don't sit with him, and don't sit with the one who sits with him. Bas. Rad, ikhwan, from Ahlul Sunnah, mujmal. But the Imam, when he made that rad, is it that he was unable to bring detail? Is it that the people now, we don't accept the statement of Imam Ahmad until he brings detail? La. And that has never been from the manhaj of Ahlul Sunnah, never been from the manhaj of the Salaf of this ummah, abadan. Yahya bin Ma'in, as far as his statement, I've used words against him that not befitting and not from the mannerisms of refutation. Again, ikhwan, another indication and another example of jahl. Yahya bin Ma'in, he spoke against an individual known as Khalid bin Salim, or Khalaf bin Salim al-Miskin. He said, Laysa bi khalafin. He said, Laysa bi khalaf. أو ليس بخلف به بأس ليس خلف به بأس غير أنه لولا أنه سفيه. He said Khalaf bin Salim al-Miskin, he said there is لا بأس به. He said he would have been all right if it wasn't for the fact that he was a fool. Now, and so that was the end of his statement. He didn't say, well, why is he a fool? And should we accept the statement of Yahya bin Ma'in because he made a statement? And he would have been all right if it wasn't for the fact that he was a fool, that the man was a fool. And that statement, ikhwan, was not just them picking fun of those who they spoke of. They made those statements based upon ilm, based upon ma'rifah, based upon knowledge. He claimed, ikhwan, that no one ever advised him. None of them advised him. None of us advised him. Wallahi kadhib. Wallahi, I advise Musa Millington. And I'm not the only one that can make that oath and that halif. I know my brother Abu Junaid Yusuf gave nasiha to him. I know my brother Abbas Abu Yahya gave nasiha to him. I know my brother Abu Ishaq Nadim gave nasiha to him. I know my brother Abu Hafs al-Laythi, Bilal al-Laythi, gave nasiha to him. I know each and every one of them can make the same oath. And what this proves, what proves his kadhib in that regard, is that perhaps the first or the second time that I visited Trinidad, I remember waiting outside the house of a brother who had been invited to dinner, We were waiting outside the house of a brother, of this brother. And Musa said, when he was speaking to me, he said, Subhanallah, you know, Allah reward you brothers for your efforts with me. I know I was foolish back then and so on, and I didn't accept the advice. I didn't take your nasiha. But may Allah reward you for your efforts. I remember you used to try with me. Wallahi, the man said that. And Musa, if you're listening, you will remember the instance. You remember we stood, I can't remember the name of the brother, but he had a house that had an area that was, that you had seats and what have you on the outside of the house. And we entered the home for dinner. While we were waiting outside, you made that statement to me. And I can't remember if my brother Abu Khadija was in earshot of the statement, but he made the statement to me that, Allah reward you brothers because you really tried with me, but I didn't really understand it until I came back to Trinidad. I didn't really catch it until I came back to Trinidad. And so his statement that, wallahi, none of them advised me, wallahi, is kadhib. And he knows it's kadhib. Musa knows it's kadhib. As far as the advice that we've given him, then we've given him detailed advice concerning the batil that he is upon. And for that reason, ikhwan, we've remained quiet and not responded to him because he's been prodding us for years. Of recent times, our noble brother Abu Iyad Amjad responded to some of his foolishness and some of his jahl in relation to the affair of Iman and what have you. The book of Iman that he claims to have studied when he studied Sharia, bearing in mind that he studied this great study of Sharia took place, ikhwan, across the best part of 3 or 4 months. Because Musa Millington, when he finished the Shu'bah, he finished the Arabic department, he entered the Kulliyah and the faculty of Sharia for a few months, and he didn't finish the first semester. Alaysa kadhalik ya Musa? He didn't finish the first semester. And so this great study of Kitab al-Iman that he claims, it all took place in every single kulliyah. We study in the first semester in a madda and a topic known as Tawheed. We study for a few sessions a week. We study Al-Iman. Some teachers teach directly from the book of Shaykh al-Islam. Some teachers just bring notes. And that is a few sessions a week for the first semester. Well, since Musa didn't even finish the first semester, he didn't even finish the study of the notes that whoever it was that taught him would have taught him. And so this great claim of when I studied Sharia, more talbis. I'm pulling the wool over the eyes of the people that they would believe, or perhaps they'll believe and accept if I make the claim that no one will oppose me, and they'll accept that I'm this great student of Sharia. But ماذا درست يا Musa? 3 or 4 months perhaps. Similarly, he's claimed that that we lied, or that I lied when I said he didn't take from any of the scholars. He took from no one from Ahl al-Ilm. He took from no one from the ulama. Then that claim, ikhwan, and that statement in and of itself is one that stands and remains the case, regardless of what he claims. Because everything that he mentions from the books that he studied and from the people that he studied under is him blowing smoke in the eyes of the ignorant. That is, the eyes of the one who is ignorant concerning him and his reality. When did you study all of these books? And when did you study all of this? I studied with Sheikh Abdul Muhsin al-Abbad, he studied with Sheikh Salih al-Sahimi, he studied with... When we're dealing with study, we're dealing with those who took, ikhwan, sat with those scholars and sat with them. A study, or the type of study that has some bearing. We're not speaking about some sittings in some of the durus of the mashaykh, in a similar manner in which the hujjaj sit with the scholars. And anybody makes hajj and umrah, they come and they sit, a few sessions with the shaykh, gone. In essence, ikhwan, if we really look at it, the talib ilm and everyone who studies in the shu'bah, unless you came and your Arabic language was relatively strong, the talib ilm doesn't really get into his talab until he finishes the shu'bah. That is when he has some command of the Arabic language and he is able to really benefit from the scholars. And since Musa, after he finished with the shu'bah, he remained for a few months after that and left, then how then could he have studied all of those books with Sheikh Abdul Muhsin and studied all of those books with Sheikh Salih al-Suhaimi, and had all of these sittings. If you look past the dust that was blown in the eyes of the listener, if you do away with the sittings of the Quran that we used to recite to Sheikh Ubaidullah al-Afghani, I don't ever remember Musa reciting to him. I'm not going to say that you never sat. Of course I wasn't with the Sheikh all of the hours of the day. I don't ever remember seeing you, that's all. But as far as the sittings with Sheikh Salih Mathalan al-Suhaimi, then Musa, because of the fact that he knows of the reality of his sittings, you'll hear him add parts of Tadmuriyah. And I studied parts of Usul al-Thalatha. Well, this is exactly what we're talking about, Ikhwan. We're not talking about sitting and taking bits and bobs. Bits and bobs from Sheikh Fulan and bits and bobs from Sheikh Fulan within the period of 2 months, 3 months. Particularly at a time when he wouldn't have appreciated those ulama, appreciated those mashaykh, since he himself accepts the fact that he didn't really take up the da'wah until he left. So how then can it be said, and how then will he claim that or those jalasat and those sittings that he had, that they were any sittings that had any real or that he took real benefit from them? I'm saying let him present a book that he began, studied and finished with an alim, and then another that he began, studied and finished with an alim. Atahaddak with an alim. We're not talking about the Hajawira or some Muhammad Maghribi who we sat with in London, and Abdullah Qatari and Yusuf الجزائري. لا, ulama, those who are recognized, and no two people will deny that there is an alim min ulama'i ahl sunnah that you sat with, you studied with, and you took ilm from. And then claiming, Ikhwan, that we lied upon him. Likewise, from the statements that I know that he made in the tape, is that we've brought no evidence. And Musa, Ikhwan, again, it's ajib that he should make such statements, because Musa himself knows of a detailed article, even though it wasn't, in essence, it wasn't a detailed article, but it was enumerating all of the points. But each of those points could have been expounded upon in detail. But I wrote a 3 or 4 part article mentioning some 106 points and 106 issues against Yahya al-Hajuri, his sheikh, and the one that he yudafi anhu difa'an mustamitan, the one that he defends difa'an mustamitan, fanatical defense of Yahya, even though ajib he never sat with him. And what would he have done then if he had sat with him and spent the close to 2 months day in day out with Yahya that we did in England, when he stayed with us in England, day in day out, which was altogether more than the time that he claims to have spent with any of the scholars of Medina? What would he have done with that period? Those points, Ikhwan, we'll mention some of the points, because it was off the back of these points that Musa claimed that I'm going to write a response. I'm going to write a response to Bilal Davis, and the response is coming. And I haven't seen any response to these points written by Musa, but in any case, this was his claim. So he's fully acquainted and fully aware of all of the 106 points that we have against him and his sheikh. From them, his claim that the Messenger ﷺ erred in regards to the means of giving da'wah. That the Messenger he erred in terms of the means, or as it relates to the means of giving. The Messenger ﷺ, he erred in terms of the means of giving da'wah. Similarly, his belief that not all of the sunnah is considered revelation. Likewise, his statement that the Messenger ﷺ his statements are not accepted except with evidence. The statements of the Messenger ﷺ are not accepted except with evidence. His holding on to some of the people of hypocrisy, and claim that some of the people of hypocrisy were students of the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam. His claim that irja was founded at the hands of the Sahaba, from them Qudama ibn Mad'um radiyallahu anhu. His attack upon Uthman, and his claim that Uthman innovated in the religion as it relates to the adhan of Jumu'ah. And let him stand then and swear by Allah that Uthman innovated. Atahadda. Let him swear by Allah that Uthman innovated as it relates to the affair of the adhan. Likewise, his claim that the companions, as far as the Battle of Badr is concerned, that they disobeyed Allah Azza wa Jal twice as it relates to the Battle of Badr. Similarly, the manner in which he enumerates the what he sees to be the sins of and the errors of the companions, in a similar manner to the gathering of the Rafidah. Likewise, his view that the Sahaba participated in the killing of Uthman. Similarly, his view that whosoever kills all of the companions, then he doesn't disbelieve, or whoever curses all of the companions, he doesn't disbelieve until he intends by way of that to reject the whole of the religion. His claim that the companions forsook Uthman radiallahu anhu. His claim that Fir'aun and the kuffar called to Tawhid Rububiyyah. His claim that Ahlul Sunnah is the closest of the groups to the truth. That they're not upon the truth, they're the closest of the groups to the truth. His claim that the innovator, that there is no difference between an innovator who calls to the innovation and the innovator who doesn't call to the innovation. Clear opposition to the mawqif and the stance of Ahlul Sunnah. His claim that the son of Adam, Qabil, that is Cain, was a kafir, and that he exited Islam, and he passed the verdict of apostasy upon him. Even though our scholars, they hold that he was sinful in killing his brother, but they were both upon Islam, as Sheikh Abdul Aziz ibn Baz mentioned. Likewise, from his statements, from his claims, is that it is permissible to assassinate foreigners, as he mentions in a tape where he states, a tape known as As'ilatu Ashab Hais. He was asked about a Christian woman who lived in a region known as Abs, who was teaching women to play football. And so he responded, Allahul Musta'an, Wallahi, this is fitna. The call to Christianity is fitna. I ask Allah to make it easy for someone to assassinate her. Likewise, from the things that indicate him, or instances of him opposing the Quran, an instance that I was present at, that he mentions in his book Arba'in al-Hisan لتنبيه الأنام في فضل الاجتماع على الطعام, on page 6. He said, indeed, while upon a journey I undertook to Britain for da'wah, I met some callers who I consider people of sunnah and ittiba. He's referring to myself. I accompanied him on that occasion. But now we're Ahlul Bid'ati wal Dalala. But then Ahlul Sunnah wal Ittiba. I would love to know what's changed. And we had gathered for dinner, and we were in the presence, incidentally, of Sheikh Abdul Razzaq, the son of Abdul Muhsin al-Abbad. He said the host then began presenting each person with individual plates, as is the custom of the kuffar there. And a man in his household, each guest eats separately. They gather around the food individually, each person sitting away from the other, not calling anyone else to participate with him. This is a blameworthy custom and an evil Western cultural practice. And so he mentions that it is a blameworthy custom from the culture of the kuffar and evil practice. Well, this is in opposition, ikhwan, to that which is present within the book of Allah Azza wa Jal. Allah Azza wa Jal mentions in Surah Nur that there is no sin upon you whether you eat together or apart. Ashtata. Yet he refers to it as an evil culture, evil practice, a blameworthy custom. Imam Ibn Kathir rahimahullah ta'ala, he mentioned that in this is an allowance from Allah for a man to eat by himself or with a group, even though eating together is more blessed. Similarly, from his statements, that oppose the Book of Allah Azza wa Jal, his claim that all of the people of Salih were united in rejecting him and speaking against him, while Allah Azza wa Jal mentions, indeed we sent to Thamud their brother Salih, saying worship Allah. Then they became two parties, believers and disbelievers, quarreling with each other. And so clearly not all of them were against him. Likewise, from his mukhalafat, Na'am, is him applying verses concerning killing and waging war against Allah and his messenger upon one who commits ghiba, backbiting and namima, tail carrying. Na'am, as far as it relates to that issue, he said in a lecture entitled An-Nahyu Anil Fasad, he mentioned, yes, indeed, the one who traverses through the earth causing corruption between the people with any type of corruption of fasad, then it is as though he has killed them. Allah the Most High has informed us of this in the story of Bani Israel concerning their affair. And then he narrates the verse. And then in his statement, he opposes that which the Mufassirun have mentioned concerning the verse and concerning the statement. Similarly, from his mukhalafat, from his issues, there are numerous unbefitting statements, ikhwan. And he's lying against Ahlul Ilm, which is what we find our scholars generally speaking concerning him for. He's lying, mathalan, against Shaykhana Shaykh Ubaid. He mentions concerning Shaykh Ubaid that Shaykh Ubaid, or that he sees that Abu Hassan is not an innovator. He claims that Abu Hassan is not an innovator, which is batil and falsehood. Shaykh Ubaid himself mentioned in a lecture that indeed the man is not from Ahlul Sunnah. His manhaj, his manhaj is corrupt. He's not from Ahlul Sunnah. In his manhaj is corrupt. That is what I am certain of, that he is a pure ikhwani, a plotter who plays games, a plant amongst the scholars of Ahlul Sunnah and the students of knowledge in Yemen in order to split their ranks and to make them into groups and parties. Yet still, Yahya, he claims, Shaykh Ubaid, he says that Abu Hassan is not an innovator. Likewise, he claims that Shaykh Ubaid sees that Sayyid Qutb is not an innovator, while Shaykh himself mentions that our older brother Shaykh Rabi' has precedence in exposing the Imams of misguidance and unearthing their corrupt aqidah and methodology, and from them the Egyptian Ibn Qutb. And so here he claims Shaykh Ubaid doesn't hold that Sayyid Qutb is an innovator, yet still Shaykh, he holds clearly that he's an innovator, mubtadi'. Similarly, his statement concerning Imam al-Barbahari, he mentions, I know that Barbahari has a takfiri inclination. Sheikh Yahya al-Hajuri made that statement in his lecture, Al-Qawl al-Jali. In case you say I'm lying upon him. In his lecture, Al-Qawl al-Jali, he says that Imam al-Barbahari has a takfiri inclination. Likewise, his statement concerning Muhammad ibn Abdul Wahhab, he said that he is a mujaddid, even though he had no concern for declaring a hadith authentic or weak, either because he was busy with affairs or because he wasn't strong in hadith. As for hadith, then he didn't have much knowledge of it or experience in it. And the one who reads his books would have no doubt about that. So whosoever wants to be bigoted towards him, then let him do so. While concerning that Shaykh Abdul Muhsin al-Abbad, he mentioned concerning Shaykh Muhammad ibn Abdul Wahhab, his striving in the knowledge of hadith and his concern with it is clear. One of the clearest evidences of this is his collection of 4,600 hadith, wherein he mentions the speech of the scholars of hadith, and he mentions those who collected the hadith and the statements of the scholars concerning the verdict upon the hadith, and similarly his other books bearing witness to this. Many of the ulama are acquainted with many ahadith and ignorant of many, so that doesn't affect their knowledge, and this is known throughout the ages. Yet still we find Yahya making that statement. Shaykh Abdul Muhsin continues, the early scholars wrote books, and from the scholars who were those who passed the verdict upon some of them with authenticity and some with weakness. Al-Mundhir in his book At-Targhib wa-Tarhib has many ahadith, the majority are authentic, while in it are ahadith that are weak. Thus, if there are ahadith that are weak found in the works of Shaykh Muhammad ibn Abdul Wahhab, that does not mean that he wasn't an alim in hadith. Not my statement, the statement of Shaykh Abdul Muhsin al-Abbad. Yet still, statement of Yahya, that he was not, had no concern for declaring a hadith authentic or weak. Likewise, his statement concerning the Fatwa Committee of Saudi Arabia, he mentions in a lecture, Tabyeenul Kadhib al-Mubeen, that I say to my brothers, indeed Fathul Bari, in our opinion, is vaster and considered a treasure. And we are ardent about evidence. Again, we see where it comes from. Evidence, evidence, we need the evidence. And na'am, Ahlul Sunnah work with evidence. There is no ghubar upon that statement, but it is what they intend by evidence that is the issue, not evidence. And their rejection of what actually is considered evidence. The only evidence to them is an ayah in the Quran and a hadith of the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam. As far as the statement of Ahlul Ilm, as far as principles and qawaid, then none of that formulate any evidence and easily rejected. He mentions, I say to you, my brothers, Naam. Then he said, then you come across a fatwa of the ulama, the companions of the committee, that is, the committee of Saudi Arabia. And they may say, no, this is not sound, or this is sound, or they may possibly say such and such hastily, or such and such, and then you are in need of evidence. So even though the fatwa committee, even though it's come from these a'immatul asar, we still need evidence, according to Yahya. His statement about the haramain, he said, so Hizbiyah has overcome the two haram. And other than the two haram in Saudi Arabia, Hizbiyah is dominant in that land. His statement concerning the Islamic University of Medina, we do not advise with studying in it. He mentioned that it was filled with Hizbiyun. Likewise, his statement concerning the issue of shortening the prayers without observing a particular time for doing so, he said in his lecture Al-Kadhib al-Mubeen, this is the school of thought of Iblis. This is the school of thought of Shaitan, Iblis. Even though there were a number of A'imma who held the position, from them Sheikh bin Uthaymeen. Likewise, his evil statements concerning the scholars of the Sunnah. His statement concerning Sheikh Rabi'. He mentions concerning Sheikh Rabi' in As'ilatu Shabab Masjid al-Istiqama fi Hudayda. He mentions concerning the Sheikh that he accuses the Sheikh of splitting the Salafis in Yemen into Salafis of the north, Salafis of the south. He accuses the Sheikh, that is, he accuses Sheikh Rabi' of being an opponent of the people of the Haqq and biased towards the Haqq and biased towards and in favor of the people of falsehood, and that he encourages the people of falsehood against the da'wah. And if somebody comes to him from Damaj, then he leaps upon them like a lion, and he makes them tremble, and his face changes, and his lip tremors from his severe anger. Statement concerning Sheikh Rabi'. He accuses him likewise of being one who plots. Yani Sheikh Rabi'. He claims that anyone who visits the Sheikh, then he returns afflicted and under trial and wavering and unstable. He claims that he made an alienation and obstruction of Damaj, and that this alienation and obstruction of Damaj will not benefit him in the dunya or the hereafter. And Ikhwan, his kalam goes on. Similarly, his statement concerning Muhammad ibn Abdul Wahhab, yani the statement that he, yani Sheikh Rabi' and Muhammad ibn Abdul Wahhab intend nothing but to keep the majority with them. Likewise, his statement in his book, in the book of Hassan al-Raimi, a book that he advises should be spread. It was a statement of Hassan al-Raimi, but he advises that this book should be spread. This statement was that it is upon Sheikh Rabi' to fear Allah and to hasten to make tawbah from these ugly actions. Yahya advises that this book should be distributed. As far as his statement concerning Sheikh Ubaid, then subhanallah al-azim, ikhwan. He referred to him as a hizbi, fajr, evil sinner. Upon him are the signs of hypocrisy, a lying hizbi, a dajjal from the dajjajila, misguided deviant, a man who causes corruption, an enemy of the sunnah, abandoned, a fool, an idiot, blind in sight and foresight, an empty individual, an unknown individual. His speech is like an old woman breaking wind, one splitting the ranks of the Dawah Salafiyah. He's confused, resembling one deranged, armor for the people of Hizbiyah. Allah has placed no barakah in his life, a lust individual, one causing corruption. Heresy is feared for him. He became misguided in his old age. May Allah disgrace Ubaid the way he disgraced Shaitan. He said that all of these statements, ikhwan, about Ubaid al-Jabiri, Shaykhana, And then, Ikhwan, when Sheikh Rabi' was asked about Ubayd al-Jabiri, Sheikhana, and the one who refers to him as whether he is an alim or student, he said, Wallahi, the one, this is the statement of Sheikh Rabi', Wallahi, the one who dispraises him and says that he is jahil, this individual follows the path of the shayateen and the way of the people of Hizbiyah in dispraising the scholars of the Sunnah. Sheikh Ubayd is from the most noble of the scholars of the Salaf, of the Salafi scholars, well known for piety, abstention from the dunya, and speaking the truth. Barakallah fikum. And no man who seeks the face of Allah speaks ill of him. This way of speaking, we have observed it from the people of Hizbiyah. And so the question that rises is, what is your stance then, Ya Musa, as it relates to all of these statements? As it relates to these disparaging statements that you promote on the website, on the English version of the website. From the Sheikh that up until now, we haven't seen you have one opposition and stood against one issue. In fact, you service his speech, service his call, service his da'wah. Likewise, we have his statements concerning his own teacher, that is the teacher of Yahya, Sheikh Muhammad ibn Abdul Wahhab al-Wasabi. He mentions, he mentions concerning him, bearing in mind first and foremost that Sheikh Muqbil said concerning Sheikh Muhammad ibn Abdul Wahhab that he, Muhammad ibn Abdul Wahhab, is the Sheikh of Tawheed and Hadith and Fiqh and noble character and abstention from the dunya and piety, and he is a merciful cultivator and one who calls to the unity of the Muslims and one who warns against evil Hizbiyah and one who is patient upon poverty and difficulty. He is wise in his da'wah and he loves the salaf of this ummah and hates the people of bid'ah in accordance to his bid'ah. يأتي هذا المسكين يحيى comes along and he says Sheikh Muhammad is a kadhab. Sheikh Muhammad ibn Abdul Wahhab is Abdurrahman Adani's boy. He's a deviant. Sheikh Muhammad, he has become a toy in the hands of the empty ones. He is a dajjal. He is one who harms the da'wah salafiyah. He is one opening the door of evil upon himself. He is from the people of falsehood. Sheikh Muqbil renewed the affairs of the deen, while this one, Sheikh Muhammad, he has destroyed everything that he built. Well, let us look at the affair in Damaj. Who built and who destroyed? He mentions concerning Sheikh Muhammad ibn Abdul Wahhab. Muhammad ibn Abdul Wahhab, brothers, wallahi, he wants Ahlul Sunnah to be like Sufis. He wishes to put out the light of Allah. He is one who opposes the da'wah salafiyah. His saliva has poured out all over the dunya. He has a doctorate in provocation. He is adamant about causing fitna. And all of these statements, ikhwan, we have evidence for all of these statements from tapes, recordings, books. He is adamant about causing fitna. It is as though he is a student of Abdullah ibn Ubay ibn Salul, who was the leader of the Munafiqun and the hypocrites at the time of the Prophet ﷺ. He is a carrier of the banner of shaitan. The older he gets, the greater his fitna becomes. We know your weaknesses in your knowledge and writings and in your da'wah. He says that addressing Sheikh Muhammad. Likewise, he mentioned concerning Sheikh Muhammad ibn Muhammad Hadi al-Madkhali, the man is jealous. He's a transgressor. He is a liar. These are all just listing here, ikhwan, his statements. His doctorate could have been authored by our small students of knowledge. The people know you. People are bigoted and people who cause fitna within the da'wah in Yemen. May Allah kill you. He says about me that I am a fool as though I am one that follows prostitutes in the street. You are the fools. You are the evil liars. You are the transgressors. You are the oppressors. You are the ones who have split the da'wah. And the supplication of the righteous shall reach you, O evildoers. You are the ones that have arrogance and haughtiness. And that he mentions, ikhwan, concerning Shaykhana Shaykh Muhammad Hadi. Likewise, his speech concerning Shaykh Abdullah al-Bukhari. And we're mentioning it, ikhwan, because they're saying there's no evidence. There's no evidence. So let us enumerate these evidences and see where Musa stands in regards to them. Likewise, that his speech concerning Abdullah al-Bukhari, he mentioned concerning him that his speech is like the speech of the deranged ones, that he's a coward, that he's a juwayhil, that he's a little ignorant one, and he's a fool, he's insolent, shameless. Bukhari has takabbur, he has takabbur, or afwan, tabakhur, that he has become vapor or smoke. Bukhari is the tail of Ubaid. Slap Bukhari, slap him. Slap Bukhari, slap him. May you perish, O Bukhari, as the hands of Abu Lahab has perished. And ikhwan, the list goes on. He spoke against Sheikh Abdul Aziz Ali Sheikh. He spoke against Sheikh Salih Ali Sheikh. He referred to him as a blind follower of Qardawi. He spoke of Sheikh Ahmad al-Najmi. He spoke against Sheikh Muhammad Farkous of Algeria and others. Ikhwan, the list goes on and on. And then you wonder why we take the stance that we take. The stance that we have, you wonder why. You wonder why we stand against Musa and we call him a fool when he establishes and agrees with and fortifies all of this. You wonder why we're calling him a fool? Is that enough of a description for the man? Evidence, ikhwan. As we mentioned, ikhwan, Musa and his like wouldn't know evidence if it jumped up and gave him a ringing slap. Likewise, he made mention in his points that as it relates to the manner in which I've dealt with this issue, he said, it is no surprise that I would deal with it in this way because I'm a student of folly, he mentions. Because I'm a student of folly. This issue, ikhwan, we hear it again, shinshinatun na'rifuha min akhzam. It is a statement that we hear these people making and we hear them uttering, that these people are students of folly. Naam, sah. The kalam and the statement is true. We were students of folly. I myself, we read a Sharia of Jurri, myself and another brother from Kuwait, in its entirety to Falih. And that was at a time when Falih was considered from the Mashaykh of Medina, not by me or any other individual from the West, by our Mashaykh within Medina. Bal, by Sheikh Abdul Aziz ibn Baz, who mentioned him by name as being from the people of Khair and Fadl within Medina. Falih al-Harbi, he is known to us. So when that was the case, we sat with him and we took from him. And that was the time that you should have been taken from him likewise. Where were you in the sittings of Falih when Falih was considered from the scholars of Medina? And those who sat with him from the students of knowledge who sat on that basis, that he had recommendation of the ulama, and thus on that basis, they sit with him and we benefit from him since he has those recommendations. Then we hear Musa making the statement, Falih was a man that spoke against the ulama. He spoke against Sheikh Abdul Razzaq al-Badr, the son of Sheikh Abdul Muhsin al-Abbad. MashaAllah. Yahya made a far worse statement than the statement of Falih. Falih, he spoke against Abdul Razzaq, Sheikh Abdul Razzaq, on the basis of some of the issues related to Ihya al-Turath and what have you. But Yahya made far worse, far greater statements and spoke about him, for example, in the sitting that I was in, when he made ikhwan an embarrassing hoo-ha in the gathering about something that was permissible in accordance with the deen, that it was permissible for him to eat from a plate. Yet still he made an embarrassing hoo-ha. We were embarrassed, ikhwan, to have attended that sitting and attended that gathering with him. But yet when Yahya does it, it's no problem. It's not an issue. But you want to mention Sheikh Abdul Razzaq with Falih as one of the issues and one of the reasons and one of the reasons for disparaging him. Yet when Yahya does the exact same thing, bal worse, it is not an issue. And so he speaks against folly, and rightly so. Rightly so. But when we were sitting with folly, he should have been sitting with folly. Just as when we used to sit with Abdullah Ghunayman, before he began to make the statements that he began to make against Ahlul Ilm, Musa should have been sitting. And when we sat with all of those other scholars and other individuals who left the Jadda and left the path of the Haqq, Musa should have been sitting. He was absent. But in his clarification, we hear of his sporadic sittings and taking bits and bobs from those scholars that he mentions. And as we mentioned, the only ones really that we pay any attention to was the mention of Sheikh Salih Sahimi and Sheikh Ali. Now, when Falih opposed the Sunnah and opposed Salafiyya, Ikhwan, who was the first to stand against Falih? And who was the first to spread his rudud before anybody in the West even knew that there was an issue? Or before many, should I say, of the people and the brothers in the West even knew that there was an issue? Who was the first to translate the kalam of Ahlul Ilm, the kalam of Shaykhna Shaykh Rabi' and the kalam of our ulama concerning Falih and spread that in the West? Rakam Wahid, who was it? No one proceeded in Maktaba Salafiyya to translating the statements of the scholars concerning Falih al-Harbi and spreading that among the West, as is the case with every single individual that our scholars speak of. Where is their bayan? Where is your bayan, Musa, concerning Falih? Detailed bayan with evidence. Where is it? Similarly, from the statements that he makes in the tape, is that we lied against him, saying that he sat with no one from the ulama. Well, obviously, Ikhwan, he's a student in the Jamia. Obviously, he's going to come across people of knowledge. And anyone who knows any student or knows of someone studying in the Islamic University of Medina, is it possible that he's going to study in the Islamic University and not come across anyone? Or not possibly have sat with anyone? So when we're saying that he never sat with anyone from the people of knowledge, it is like a person who says, concerning a person who studied, for example, mechanics, and he comes back and he has no idea about what he's doing. He opens the bonnet of a car, he doesn't know where the carburetor is, he doesn't know where the clutch is, he has got no idea. What is it that we say about such an individual, even though he claimed to have studied? He never studied anything when he went away. He never came back, he never studied a thing when he was there. Because the ibra is not what a person possesses or not what a person claims to have studied. It is what he possesses. What has he come back with? Is he upon the manhaj of the ulama, the manhaj of the mashaykh? He mentions and says likewise, just because him and his cronies didn't see me. But it was an issue when I called him a fool, yet it is okay for him to call myself and the brothers who were with us in Medina cronies. Yani, that is all right. That is from the manhaj al-Rad, and that is no doubt, I'm sure, supported by evidence. But if none of us saw you, then who saw you, Ya Musa? Who is it? Who saw you? Who are your shuhud of all of these mulazama and these durus that you attended? Who? Name for us just a few individuals that would have known of your mulazama and your sitting in those durus and taking that knowledge. No, who? And so, Ikhwan, Allah al-Musta'an, Allah al-Musta'an. On a level, Ikhwan, sarahatan, it grieves us to have to make these statements. It grieves us. But it is a greater cause of grief that people should have an attachment to this type of individual. يعني رجل جاهل and a رجل who يتعالم, feigns ilm, feigns knowledge. Yet in actuality, Ikhwan, the reality with the individual is that if he was someone who accepted that he was ignorant, accepted that he didn't really study for a great period with anyone from the scholars, and remained quiet and didn't make the type of noise and hoo-ha that he makes, I would have probably had some respect for that. If you'd have remained quiet and we don't hear anything from you, Musa, I would have had some respect for that. But Jahil, ويتكلم بملفي, and with this jur'ah, agrees with Yahya with all of these issues and mukhalafat, and is from the heads of those, if not the head, of those who spread this batil in the English language. And then we're to remain silent concerning that, ikhwan? We're to remain silent concerning that? The point is, Ya Musa, know yourself. Know yourself. Don't go past yourself. Stay in your lane. And it would wallahi be better for you to remain silent. This kalam of ours, if it stops anyone from attending your duroos or from taking from you, then at least it's prevented you from amounting shar yawm al-qiyamah. It is a mercy to you in actuality. If your followers are prevented from you, then that is good for you. Since on the day of judgment, you will be taken into account for every individual, ikhwan, who you encouraged with this batil and with this falsehood and with this misguidance. And I remind you of the statement of Imam al-Tahawi, who mentioned علماء السلف من السابقين ومن بعدهم من التابعين أهل الخير والأثر وأهل الفقه والنظر لا يذكرون إلا بالجميل ومن ذكرهم بسوء فهو على غير السبيل. And there are many more observations. My brother Abu Iyad Amjad Rafiq, حفظه المولى ورعاه, has some extensive articles, ikhwan, ongoing articles with this man in the issue and in the topic of Iman, among other things, indicating, ikhwan, the jahl of the man. No ta'sil and no understanding other than bits and bobs. And Shaykh al-Islam Taymiyyah mentioned, ikhwan, yufsidu dunya thalatha, and others, that there are 3 types of individuals that corrupt the dunya. Nisf طبيب, نصف عالم, and نصف نحوي. 3 types of dunya, 3 types of individuals that corrupt the dunya. Half doctor, a half grammarian, and half jurist or alim. One who just took bits and bobs and then attempts to practice and spread and promote the misunderstood bits and bobs that he took. Wallahi, ikhwan, there's much that we can say, but we run up there. We've got a plane to catch, ikhwan. And reality is, we were there in Trinidad for 3 long days. Musa had every opportunity to come and see me. If you had an issue, you could have come see me. You know exactly where I was. We're not far from you. You'd have no oceans to cross. Jump in your car or go catch a taxi up to Masjid Khalifa. Not far. You had 3 days to come see me. When we wait till we leave Trinidad, come to Tobago, you know, we're many miles away, and then we begin to launch a response upon the statements that I made. If you really had an issue, you could have come see me.